who will be in service is with the secular Jewish. He's Jewish by chance. Yeah. No, that was just.
Good afternoon. My name is Mark Weber of the Jewish Secular Community of Cleveland. And on behalf of the Klein and Solo families, I would like to welcome you and to thank you for coming in such bad weather as we gather to remember and to celebrate the life of Michael Scott Klein, who died about 1 week ago in Los Angeles. All who knew Michael thought of him as being brilliant, kind, gentle, and generous. He was known for being a devoted friend and confidant to many. He was a loving brother to Joe Solo, Deborah Klein, Daniel Klein, Stephen Klein, and he was a dear uncle to Danye, Tammy, Jesse, Jordan, Zach, Abby, and the great uncle of Harley. I'm wondering if there's anyone here in the audience who has heard of the organization called Club, C-L-U-B? Didn't think so. Joe, Michael's brother, informed me that these are the initials for the Cleveland League of Unsurpassed Brains. I knew that was on the tip of your tongue, right? Well, this was the creation of Michael and several other brainy kids with maybe too much time on their hands, but good intentions. The club's most memorable project was the creation of a haunted house inside the Klein home. From there, Michael, of course, went to Shaker High School, where he graduated after starting the first computer club at the school. And then he got his bachelor's degree in physics from the California Institute of Technology. After graduation and off and on and off through much of his life, Michael helped a number of startup companies get off the ground. However, there was really much more to Michael than science and computers. He was a talented juggler, of course, a voracious reader, and I learned a mean dancer. Some of Michael's most enjoyable moments were those that he spent swing dancing or blues dancing as part of the vibrant LA dance scene. Like all of us, Michael had dark moments and faced challenges in his life, challenges to his health. Joe remembered that Michael sometimes suffered from depression and anxiety as an adult. And while Michael was generous to a fault with his loved ones and his friends, sometimes generous people do not always take care of themselves. And Michael didn't always heed the warning signs of his body or perhaps even get the kind of treatment that he needed. In the end, tests revealed that Michael had pancreatic cancer, and Michael died in the hospital in Los Angeles on November 20th of this year. Michael was preceded in death by his father, John Klein, his aunt, Darlene Cesare Reichley, and his uncles, Joe and Spencer Klein. When I talked with Joe a couple days ago, I asked him to list a couple or three things about Michael that he will always remember. And I'm sure that there are more than just three, but Joe mentioned one, Michael's zest for life. He was overall happy with his life, and happy with his friends, and happy with his hobbies. Michael was also a teacher. Not all teachers can teach. Michael was a teacher and could teach. And his skill, according to Joe, was simply taking a complex topic and being able to break it down and explain it to a beginner. And finally, no condescension. Michael did not use his brilliance or his knowledge to talk down to people. Whether someone was advanced or a beginner, it did not matter to Michael. He would help them, and they could be his friend. As I have tried over the past few days to reconstruct the life of Michael Klein, I would like to thank those who gave their time to talk to me about this very, very amazing man. Michael's mother, Linda Klein, his brother, Joe Solo, dear family friend, Rachel Lerner, childhood friend, Stuart Friedman, and neighbor, Megan Jordan. As I leave the podium now, I want just to tell you who will be speaking from the family. Joe Solo, followed by Deborah Klein, followed by Daniel Klein, and then Danye Solo, Joe's daughter, Stuart Friedman, family, longtime friend, Rachel Lerner, family friend, Tom McWilliams, a longtime friend, I think going back to college. So these are the folks who will speak to you this afternoon and tell you many more things about Michael than I can. So, Joe, we're ready.
I want to welcome everybody and thank you. We really appreciate your attendance today. Oh, the mic. You would think, as a guy in the music business, I'd know to talk into this thing. So anyway, welcome, and we really appreciate you coming here today. And I want to talk a little bit about Mike. So there was a phase in my life where I was actually doing some sleepwalking. And one night, I sleepwalked to the kitchen, I guess to get a snack. And on the way back, I started to fall backwards. And that kind of woke me up, you know, that feeling like when the chair falls backwards. It'll wake you up. Anyway, I thought, oh no, I'm going to hit the ground. It's going to hurt. And at the very last second, I didn't hit the ground. And I look up, and there's Mike's smiling face. He had caught me at the last second. It was the middle of the night, and he anticipated this somehow. It was a really great memory for me, so I just wanted to share that with you and give you an idea of how thoughtful Mike was. And during Mike's Caltech years, he bought me, the generous man that he is, my first professional multi-track recording studio, which evolved into my career as a record producer. And had Mike not done that, I don't think I'd had this career. Now, whenever I was feeling lonely, Mike would stay and comfort me. We'd have our deep talks, or he would get into my bed like when we were kids, and we'd harshly critique movies and have good laughs over that. And it made my loneliness just melt away. And he was always there for me. It was easy because we lived together too. But I really appreciate that out of Mike. And every Friday night, we would do a pizza movie night. And I always look forward to that so that we could hang out on a specific night that we could look forward to. Now, as we all know, Mike was colossally smart, brilliant. Feynman, Edison, Einstein, idiots compared to Mike. And it was always so helpful to have somebody around who had more smarts than AI. Mike had what is called RI, real intelligence. So anytime I needed help with anything, Mike knew what to do. When I needed advice on any subject, he was able to accommodate. We shared joyful conversations about the universe and physics, psychology, advanced math, and so many other topics. And we loved to debate each other. Of course, he won 95% of the time. And when I needed him, and when he needed me, I was there for him. And this was the nature of our relationship, taking turns, taking care of each other when we really needed it. This was throughout our entire lives. For example, When I fell off a truck onto a ground which was covered with sharp rocks, and I ended up needing 15 surgeries over 3 years, Mike took care of me for each one. And he would even squeeze and massage my feet for 20 minutes just to relax me. I mean, what a great brother. And when he needed a place to live from time to time, my family would always welcome him to help him out. And those times were extra wonderful for my daughters, Danya and Tammy, because they loved Uncle Mike, loved him. And he treated them as their own. As his own, excuse me. A few last fun facts about Mike you may or may not know. He liked to jump from the roof of his second-story apartment into the pool down below. And the pool wasn't directly below the roof. He had to jump out enough. He never missed, never. One time, brilliant man that he is, in high school, he was able to break into the Cleveland Heights Educational District computer system, and he would walk around in the computer. He could see the teachers' salaries and the grades of the students, and if he wanted to, he could have even changed them, but Mike would never do something like that. He just wanted to prove to himself that he could. In 10th grade, Mike figured out a way to hack the entire AT&T phone system so that he could get free long-distance calls as often as he liked. Now, that was in 10th grade. And he loved to swing dance, going out several nights every week, and he was very good. And the ladies liked that, and Mike liked that the ladies liked that. He was my big brother, best buddy and confidant, and I will miss him the rest of my days. Thank you.
Hi, thanks everyone. Can you hear me? Yeah. For being here, and I have just a few thoughts about Michael. One of the things that I really found endearing and intriguing and that I just loved about him, which Joe alluded to with the story about jumping off the balcony, is that he loved challenges. He loved to challenge himself. And so I have just a few that I can think about, but I'm sure some of his better friends can think of more interesting ones or just more details. So just recently I spoke with him a few weeks ago, and he told me he was trying to do all his communication online just using emojis. That's Mike. He also mentioned that at some point in his life, he taped off an 8 by 6 foot area in his room so that he could see what it would be like to live in a prison cell. Why? I don't know. I can't ask him anymore. And as Mark mentioned, he liked to juggle. And again, recently he was supposed to be coming into town for Thanksgiving, and he asked me to dig out my son's juggling pins so that they could practice tossing them back and forth together. So I did bring them. I'm going to take them to Linda's house, and anyone who wants to juggle, have at it, just in honor and memory of Zach. And a classic Michael challenge was to see how efficiently and comfortably he could live so that he could just have all of his necessary items in a backpack. And he did live that way for many years. And then the final challenge that I just love, I just heard this story recently. He created a film, like a stop action, like an animation, using a security camera that took a photograph every 5 seconds. And he must have known the person who, could show him the movie afterwards and put it together. And what he did was he stood in front of the camera, and every 5 seconds he would, until I think he spent like an hour and a half doing this. And then the film came out where it just looked like he was falling backwards. So that's my brother, Michael. A few other random thoughts and memories. Charlotte's Web was the first book that made him cry. A couple of his favorite books are Siddhartha by Hermann Hesse and Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance. I'll bring these to Linda's too if you want to take a look and see what intrigued him. And Linda, last time I talked to him, he said he still has the spoon that you took from Mount Sinai Hospital on the day he was born. True. And I still have the Bhagavad Gita that he borrowed from a hotel room where they had a Bhagavad Gita and a Bible because he knew I was interested in yoga. And finally, my dad and him used to have discussions about whether there was a human soul. And they actually had a bet that my dad would say he thought at the moment of death we lost 1 ounce, and that was the weight of the soul. And of course, Michael, being agnostic or atheist, bet the other. So I guess now they both know. So thank you all, and I'm going to miss my brilliant, sweet, kind, all of those. It's just hard to wrap my head around that this is true. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. I have a little bit different take on Mike towards the end here. Put a few memories together, just basically yesterday, because I didn't know I was going to be speaking. But my earliest memory of Mike was when I was a teen living with Dad and Linda at their house on Shaker Road, in the basement yet, and Mike was still a baby. And, I was tasked to babysit, and I had to change his diapers a few times. He never did thank me for that. I don't remember much else about his childhood years, but I have to say that Michael was a math whiz. Some of this is going to be repeated. He's the only one I knew who could solve the Rubik's Cube. More importantly, he was a software developer extraordinaire. And because of that, I think that in 1978, Dad bought a computer to help run the business, and we were both working there. And Michael stepped in and helped program that computer. And he certainly wasn't selfish about sharing his knowledge. Everyone said that he was a teacher. And yes, one of the most memorable things about him was that he taught me to program, which led me to my life's profession. So I was a programmer until I retired for 40 plus years, and this is all thanks to Mike. Michael and I also went on a few hiking trips together. We went to national parks like Grand Tetons, hiking the mountains, Zion National Park, Grand Canyon, a few local hikes. Anyway, those were the good times. Michael was full of life and ambition, but something happened which changed all that. Michael didn't die last week. No, I'm not talking about literal death. I'm talking about the erosion of meaning in life. He died when, little by slowly, he gave up and let despair take hold. To that end, Michael was giving us his final lesson. And that is to face those challenges, to face your challenges, and not let despair take hold of your life. To either solve or accept and adapt. If you don't, then you let despair take hold, and that becomes the beginning of the end. I'm going to miss Mike. I really am. Even though we were separated by thousands of miles, he meant a lot to me. He changed my life forever. Thank you.
Okay. Hi, can you hear me? Okay. Hi, my name is Danye. I am Mike's niece. My Uncle Mike was a pretty cool dude, to put it really simply. One of my favorite memories of my Uncle Mike is, I don't know, maybe about 8, maybe I was really young. And one summer, he got this box of Legos, and we decided to make a little Lego house. It was not very nice. It was really simple. I made it. And so we did the calculations. We we got a ruler, measured the height, the width, and we decided to scale it up into a house that I could stay in out of cardboard. Our ultimate goal was to actually make a cardboard house or out of wood, but we made it out of cardboard, and I slept in it for the entire summer. And I was really teaching me conversion and stuff at 8. It was really fun. It was really cool. That was my favorite thing to do. My Uncle Mike was one of my biggest inspirations. I'm doing computer science as my degree. I teach kids how to code. And that's from my Uncle Mike. He was so cool. I thought it was so cool when he was coding. That was the coolest thing. And doing math and physics. It was so cool. And we connected on our love for programming and math. Along with my Uncle Mike, along with him being my uncle, he was also my friend and my mentor. And when I went off to college, the first thing that he asked me is, can I be your mentor? Because I told him I was doing computer science as my major. And I was ecstatic. I was so happy. And every time that I had a problem that I couldn't solve, I always texted or called my Uncle Mike, and we'd talk for hours on coding. And it really did help me. It really did dumb down those the concepts that I could understand, and then that made me go to my friends and my classmates and be like, guys, I know what's going on. I can help. Sorry, I took all the credit. Even though Mike is gone physically, he will always be in the things that I do and everything that I see. Every time that I program, every time that I watch Psych, our favorite show to watch, every time that I saw carabiners, that was his favorite thing. He actually gifted me a carabiner that I have today. That is my favorite thing that I own, is this carabiner with a locking mechanism. It's not that special, but it's special to me. When I see a collapsible item, he likes things that you could collapse and minimize things as much as possible. And every time I see him, I was like, oh, dude, Mike would love this. Every time that I use Scratch, which was this program that I learned, in high school when I taught him it, and I was he thought it was so cool. He went above and beyond about it. He learned about the language that it used. Now I tell everyone that, and I think I'm so cool. Sorry, I took all the credit again. Every time that I see Choco Cat, which is his favorite Sanrio character, mine is Cinnamon Roll. Every time that I watch Star Trek, every time that I watch Firefly, every time that I watch anime, every time I see some stupid political thing in the media, every time that I see my cat Tenchi, we shared our love for my cat Tenchi. Every time that I see Java, the coffee and the programming language, he hated it. Java does suck. Mike has integrated himself in small ways in my life, and so has he in yours. I see it. I see it in his friends. I see it in his family. I see it in the way that they talk, they behave. I see Mike everywhere. And with that being said, I want to leave you with this quote. The culmination of love is grief, and yet we love despite the inevitable. We open our hearts to it. To grieve deeply is to have loved fully. Open your heart to the world as you've opened it to me, and you will find every reason to keep living in it. Thank you.
Sorry, there's going to be some repetition, I think, because we didn't coordinate any of our remarks. But what can I say about Mike? As other folks attest, he was kind, generous, brilliant, and curious, as well as the type of son, brother, and friend many of us would want in our life. Despite having his own deeply held beliefs, he was non-judgmental and loving to the core. One of our classmates recently opined that Mike knew how to be critical, honest, and funny without being offensive. I was lucky to have met Mike shortly after moving to Shaker 52 years ago, as I settled into Onaway Elementary School as the new kid in the 5th grade. Mike was already friends with Bruce Daniel and Lee Hertz, but let me join his club of relatively nerdy boys. While we talked in 6th grade class about creating a giant slide rule or raced each other to finish the whole math curriculum before the end of the school year, Mike also included us in his home life, which included an introduction to the tools of his dad's business, transitioning from a cool electric typewriter to a computer over the years, as well as Klein code, the secret language I never learned, which is really a cipher if I remember correctly, but he used that to share data with his dad. We had sleepovers, joined the Boy Scouts together, and enjoyed playing ping pong in the basement, all while conversing enthusiastically about math, science, technology, and science fiction. Our 6th grade teacher, Mrs. Barbara Fox, of blessed memory, once told some of our parents that any one of us in a class alone would have had difficulty, but the fact that Mike, Bruce, and I were together created a situation where we were more accepted by our classmates and we were able to thrive because of it. A major aspect of our social life together outside of the school was the club, and that included also Bruce, Lee, and Jeff Baumel as permanent members. We never agreed on a better name for it, but as you heard, one modest suggestion we discussed was using it as an acronym for the Cleveland Legion of Unsurpassed Brains. We made our clubhouse in the loft of the Klein's garage. We stapled a patchwork of carpet remnants onto the floor and created an elaborate solenoid-based lock system with a pulley and a counterweight to open the door. Mike also got his folks okay to dig a trench in the yard so we could wire an intercom system between the house and the garage, and that was years before any of us would have a cell phone. As the club, which our friend Lee likes to recall as the science club, we always gave ourselves projects. In one case, the hot air balloon kit we ordered from Edmund Scientific and spent significant time putting together excited us right up until it burned up during launch. Oh well, on to the next project, and the Edmund catalog was so full of cool stuff. One of the highlights was the haunted house that you heard about a little bit, and we put that on for young trick-or-treaters on Halloween. At Lee's house, Mike was excited to adapt the physics of optics using lighting and reflection that he saw at Disneyland to make a person turn into a skeleton. At Mike's house, we constructed a line and pulley system to move a ghost around the front yard. Lee told me that he still recalls these times every Halloween and that remembering his experiences with Mike and the club helped him to be a better parent and gave him the confidence to tackle tech-related business problems that daunted others. Interspersed between the projects were conversations about computer concepts, science, fact, and fiction, and anything else that caught our imagination. Mike was at the head of the pack when it came to curiosity and then learning and sharing. Whether it was binary number concepts as applied to computer technology of the time, punch cards and paper tape, or ASCII versus EBCDIC, anyone? Or trying to explain calculus to some of us in our 8th grade year while riding the rapid train downtown to the Cleveland Public Library, which was our holy grail of information in the pre-internet age. During those years at Woodbury Junior High School, we used to stay for hours after school using the computer via hard copy teletype and acoustic coupler modem. We were there so late that my mom once called to beg the custodian to go looking for us after he said that everyone had left. Sure enough, we were there. As we went through high school, Mike started to connect with kids in the class behind us more and started a computer club. Matt Wall recalled Mike's patience, enthusiasm, and humor when explaining things to the new generation, which set Matt on a path to making it a career, not unlike Dan. During those teen years, my favorite expression of Mike's sense of humor was when he recounted someone asking him what instrument his brother played, to which he replied, "Amplifier. The guitar is just something you plug in." Sorry, Joe. Combining the humor with his love of animals, especially cats, led to his trying his own brand of conversion therapy on our dog, Papageno, nicknamed Poppy, whom Mike desperately wanted to become a cat. He also enjoyed being a gremlin in his dad's business computer system, so he used his trusted access to start sending Northern Ohio Live magazine to Dr. Papageno Friedman. Needless to say, this resulted in laughter from 2 generations of Kleins and Friedmans, which created the desired result for Mike. As geography separated us a lot in adult life, Mike and I still found common ground, trust, and a continued loving friendship over the years. He also had an independent friendship with my mom of blessed memory, of which I got a few glimpses, and it was great to hear that he would often visit her when he returned to Cleveland. He was a huge fan of her artwork, especially a children's book she illustrated, The Kitten in the Pumpkin Patch. He bought copies of this out-of-print book on eBay to share his love of it by gifting it to a number of children. I'm glad that my kids got to meet him and enjoy both his juggling and his sense of humor when he stayed with us during their early elementary school years. And I'm grateful for the hours that Mike and I did manage to spend together here or there or on the phone over the years. I enjoyed hearing how his unquenchable curiosity and interest in such a variety of things connected him to other folks. He went on for quite a while, for example, explaining Randy Sulganik's business. This impressed me a lot, though I should not have been surprised at his enthusiasm for personal connection combined with science. Mike touched many of our lives in ways I don't think he fully realized. And like other folks with whom I've communicated recently, I believe that knowing him has enhanced my life. If only we really were figments of his imagination, as he postulated around 9th grade. Maybe we would not be going through this difficult time. Sorry, Mike, I forgot what figment number you assigned me, but I hope it was 78. Mike is gone too soon, and he leaves a void that nobody will ever be able to fill. Rest in peace, my friend.
Hello. Hi, everybody who's here, and I understand there are a lot of people streaming, so we feel you. My name's Rachel, and I came to know Mike about 40 years ago and was introduced to him as Rachel, his brother Joe's girlfriend. So he knew me as that for many years, but as time would tell, we developed a friendship on our own. And I can tell you that I was a huge fan of Mike, and I will miss him. And I think being the last speaker, I think there's a common theme. I think we all know that Mike had so many wonderful traits. It's hard to just express them in a limited amount of time. But to me, and not to be corny, but to me, he was kind of a Renaissance man. And I say that because he engaged in so many different thought processes and projects, and he could explain concepts to people, and he was an active learner, and he was not judgmental, and he wanted everybody to join him in his enthusiasm for knowledge, even those of us who, weren't at his level. So I have a couple of things I'd like to share as to why I think he's a Renaissance man. I think we all know that he had a brilliant mind. I think that physics was his art form, and we heard he's athletic. What you may not remember about Mike is I think it might have been semi-professional, but he did couples roller skating in high school and in college. He was really good. And when you're at Linda's, we could show you a picture, which is really funny. He was, posing with his partner. It was really funny. And of course, dancing. Mike loved to swing dance. So one of my favorite stories is the first time that my husband Dave met Mike is in about 2005, and we went out to visit Joe and Azalea and Mike, and we were all on the back deck. I remember we were outside, and Mike was telling us how he learned some new moves. And so before you know it, he goes up to my husband and just takes his hands and says, okay, I'm going to be the female part, you're going to be the male part, just follow me. And unwittingly, my husband's like, oh, okay. So there they went, stumbling and all, until they actually were in sync. It was a treat to see, funny and amazing. And so Mike, ever the teacher, and my husband, an unwitting student, they were just the two of them laughing and dancing and swinging, and it was wonderful to see. And I think Dave did well too, dancing for the first time. So kudos to you. Okay. The second thing, a lot of us have talked about how Mike could explain very complex things to his colleagues, lay people, whoever was on the street, and he loved doing it non-judgmentally. And for me, we'd have hours-long conversations, and he spoke the language of physics and math, which I do not speak, but I majored in philosophy, so he thought he could meet me where I was, as Mike does, and talk about the interconnectedness of both physics and philosophy. And we had such great conversations, and he met me where I was, and he never made me feel small or lesser than, because he was just as interested in whatever I could add to the conversation. And that's another trait of someone who's so brilliant. They want to hear from others, and they learn where they can. And Mike learned throughout his life. So the other thing is he could quote philosophers verbatim. I mean, I majored in it, and he's talking about Nietzsche and Spinoza and the forerunners of thought during different periods. He loved the Enlightenment. So I think that all of these things make a Renaissance man. But I talked to Mike 2 nights before he passed, and we talked for about 2.5 hours. And we just talked. He was very excited about his new chapter in life. He wanted to live. He wanted to do one last project with his friend Thomas that would be world-changing. I remember him saying that. And I asked him, this was not a morbid conversation. We thought he was going to recover. And I asked him whether he believed in God. And after we chuckled a little bit, I said, well, do you believe in some form of a first mover, God, Krishna, Muhammad, whatever it could be? And I said, the questions I always peppered him with, what? Who created the Big Bang, and what started, universes and galaxies, and eternity, really. And what he said to me was perfect. He said, I don't know about the rest, but I think about eternity. My thought is this, that when physics or humankind can define eternity, then we will know what it is. So he's always, questioning it. I just thought that was a great answer because he kind of skewed the other questions I was peppering with. So again, I think that he had so many traits that made him a Renaissance man. And I like to think of Mike transformed into some sort of vibrational energy. It's got to go somewhere, right? And for me, I like to think of him sort of, questioning and curious in wherever he is, learning and asking hard questions and enjoying himself and spinning through eternity and, of course, swing dancing.
Hello, I'm Tom, Mike's longtime friend. I met Mike at my first job out of school, working for a company called Imagic, programming video games. And I went to work there, and during that time, Mike and his good friend Rick, who's here, were studying at Caltech, and they were both video game fanatics too. And they stumbled upon an opportunity to take a break from school and come work at Imagic programming video games. And that's where I met them. And we three hit it off. And we rented a house together. And we pretty much lived at that company. It was a Silicon Valley startup in the magical early days. We worked with some incredible people, the smartest people I've ever known. We would work during the day coding, and then at night we would stay at the company and play games and talk about science and philosophy. And I learned so much from Rick and Mike, such smart people. And nothing good lasts forever, and Magic folded after a few years. And I moved to Los Angeles, and Mike soon after moved back to Los Angeles to continue school and get his physics degree. Rick also followed back down to Caltech and finished his degree and stayed in Los Angeles. And we were all in the same place at the same time for most of our life. And Mike and I went on all kinds of adventures, so many stories. We went up to the mountains and we both learned how to snowboard together, went on many snowboard trips. He got into electric skateboards, taught me how to skateboard, and that was when he discovered his passion in life, which was swing dancing. And he became big swing daddy, I call him, on the LA swing dancing scene. And he even taught me how to swing dance. I wasn't very good at it, but Mike didn't care. He treasured spending time with his friends and treasured even more dancing with his friends. And so about that time, Mike was living life as what he called himself, the urban nomad. He was couch surfing, staying with friends, and he would go to many friends' houses and help them organize, clean up their house, and nanny for their kids. And all he asked for was a couch to crash on and their time and friendship. And he was one of the most selfless persons I've ever known. He spent his time dedicating his life to his friends and family and never focusing on himself. Around that time, in the background, he had some investments that eventually paid off, and he found himself in a position where he was financially independent. And he still continued to devote his life to his friends and family, and he, even when it hurt him, he would still stay loyal to his friends. And he buying socks was a big deal for Mike, and he spent months researching the best bed pillow. And when he finally found it, he could hardly even pay the money to get it for himself, because it was for himself, and his focus was on everybody else. And during the pandemic, he hunkered down, and he was in depression off and on over that time. But depression to Mike was was very deep. Like you said he wanted to see what it was like to be in a prison cell and live in a small area, but that was like his zone. He would watch movies, and so the pandemic really didn't. The pandemic for Mike was not like for the rest of us, but he didn't come out of that depression until the beginning of this year, and he started to get back on his feet, reaching out to friends, and we had very fortunate opportunity. A group put together a reunion for a Magic, and so I had helped Mike get a car, which was a monumental task because getting socks is a monumental task. You can imagine getting a car. So we hopped in his new car and we drove up to Northern California for the reunion for a Magic, and we met all the people that we work with. Some we hadn't even seen for more than 40 years, and we reconnected, and Mike got to spend a perfect weekend with all our old friends, and it was like yesterday that we saw them, even though 40 years had gone by. And so I've been spending a lot of time with Mike this year as had been getting back on his feet, and I want to leave you with an insight that I had from spending more time with Mike and talking about philosophy and the universe. Mike lived his life like Schrodinger's cat, and Schrodinger's cat from physics, and he's not here to explain it to us, so you will have to go look it up if you want to know the details. But basically, it comes from physics, with the laws of physics saying that matter in the universe the state of matter in the universe is not known until it's observed. And even more oddly, the laws of physics say that until something is observed, it exists in all possibilities. It can be positive and negative, yes and no, bad and good, and sad and happy at the same time. So Mike went out of his way to avoid observing all the things in his life that he was uncertain about. And to the outside world, it was like, Mike, when are you going to take care of this? Or when are you going to go find out about that? And he would just say to us, I know. But inside, he was creating a perfect world where he knew that if he didn't observe something, it existed in the way that he thought it ought to be. And so he lived in a personal Eden, and reality sometimes would rear its ugly head and poke through his bubble, but he would seek out his friends, which he had so many, and spend his time with his friends. So I'm going to borrow Mike's perspective, and I can't observe him now, and so I'd like to think that he's somewhere on a cloud dancing somewhere, and that's the way I think he ought to be. So I miss you dearly, Mike. Hopefully I'll see you dancing on the cloud someday.
All right, is this, can people hear me all right? Yeah. All right, how about now? Can people hear? Okay. All right, is this good? All right. Yeah, so I, like many people, was honored to have Mike as a friend. It's actually very hard to understate this. I've been to a few funerals. This is the only one where there was where you could be waitlisted for speaking about Mike. The wait list is kind of substantial. So like other people, I'm going to tell a bunch of stories about Mike and try and make them not overlap. This is the kind of person that just there's so many. It's yeah. Mike went swing dancing. Did you guys know that Mike was friends with Bill Nye the Science Guy? Because Bill also swung dance, so like naturally, of course, Mike and Bill are actually friends. It's you of course know he of course he electric skateboard. Why wouldn't he? Of course, and do it in Hermosa. Mike was also always very forward-looking. He was never shy about embracing new things, meeting new people, and new technology. A very early adopter. So he would often be using things they're just not ready yet. They probably should have stuck in the lab a little bit. But he just loved using them, not because they were useful today, but it let him see like what the future would be like. They sort of like kind of cast the light of what's, will be to come. There's so many, I'm not going to say all these stories, because we all, okay, I'll say this one. So it's you couldn't help but like just want to help be with Mike. I have there are at least 3 separate occasions of someone just gifting Mike a car. There might be more, but there's only 3 that I can personally confirm. Mike had an email at mike@klein.com, not because he owned klein.com, but because he just reached out to the owner and asked him to do him a solid. You couldn't help but want to be around this room. Everyone has already said of how thoughtful and considerate he is. Mike would carry around a surge protector because if you need a plug at the airport, people have to give it to you because you're creating more plugs. They just kind of had this is just, how could they say no? So one of these early, now I remember. So one of these early devices he had was a Falcon. This is a force feedback device. It's probably, Tom McWilliams might have it somewhere. This lets you have the feeling of putting your hand through sand or water in an electronic device. And Mike just had it because, well, of course he did. One of the things that I've found very helpful as I've sort of mourned and grieved is just talking to people like what your favorite memory of Mike is. Because none of them is anything other than delightful and comforting. So I want to be respectful of time, but I'll start on with this. Mike's an atheist. I consider myself fairly secular as well, and like him, fairly materialist. But in that, I have the belief that we do live 2 lives. We live the life that is our physical beings, but we also live the life of memories. The life that we have as we live in the memories of others. And Mike lives, in that sense, Mike lives more vibrantly and richly than anyone I've personally known. Thank you. May his memory be a blessing.
Even though Mike was an atheist, some of us who are mourning him are not, and takes comfort in some prayers. So I'd like to offer a traditional prayer. El male rachamim, shochen bamromim, hamtze menucha nechona, al kanfei hashchina, b'ma'alot kedoshim utorim, kezohar harakia masirim, et nishmat Michael Scott Klein shalach leolamo began Eden terhei menuchato lachen balarachamim yastirehu beseter knafav leolamim v'yitzror bitzror hachayim et nishmato Adonai hu nachalato, v'yanuach al mishkavo b'shalom, v'nomar Amen. Now, anyone who wishes to can say the Mourner's Kaddish with me. I know the cards were given out to some folks. Yitkadal v'yitkadash shmei rabbah, V'almad divrach hirutei v'yamlich malchutei b'chayechon v'yomechon v'chayei d'chol Beit Yisrael v'agalav v'zman kariv v'imru amen Yehei shmei rabba mevorach le'alamu al me'almaya Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitramam v'yitnasei v'yithadar v'yit'aleh v'yithalal shmei d'kudsha brichu Le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata, tushbchata v'nechamata, damiran bi'ama v'imru amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shmaya, v'chayim alenu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Oseh shalom b'mamav, hu yaseh shalom, alenu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. And I will just say to Linda and Joe and Dan and Deb and all the family, the traditional greeting to mourners, which is Hamakom Yinachem Etchem B'toch Sha'arei Ve'elei Tzion V'Yerushalayim. May you be comforted amongst all the mourners of Zion and Jerusalem.
Well, Michael, isn't it just like us? We plan to celebrate your life, so we schedule it on a day that you can't be here. But you know, Michael, we're all here. The only person who's missing is you. But if you can't make it, please understand that we all have a space in our heart that belongs to you. Farewell, Michael, and may your name be a blessing. A one-day Shiva will be starting soon and will continue until 8 p.m. this evening. It will be held at the home of Linda Klein, 3329 Clayton Boulevard in Shaker Heights. 3329 Clayton Boulevard in Shaker Heights, near the Lee Road Van Aken Boulevard intersection. On behalf of the Klein and Solo families, thank you very much for coming.
conclude services. Thank you for attending. Everyone may exit out this door, please.